All right, y'all. Good afternoon. This is Vernon Jones here on the Justice Cast with my partners in the revolution, my homeboys, my squad, my dude, Caleb, the producer, Itzael, the wizard behind the curtain, and we are glad to be here today on the Justice Cast. Glad you are with us as well. We're excited to be here talking more all things education, talking more about the education compact that we believe in. That's been a framework that we have been looking at to frame our work here. Bless you. Someone sneezed. Here at Faith Bridge, and today I want a couple things are going on. We've been talking CMAS with you guys. We're talking CMAS and the SPF. Do you know what that stands for?
Yes, I do.
Oh, do
That's
you? Let's
yeah.
see. Let's see. Let's see if the DU education is paying off right.
Oh, I thought you were gonna say DPS, but
Oh, okay. DU or DPS, either one.
school performance framework.
Oh my goodness, we have a winner. SPF, School Performance Framework. Thank you, DPS. Thank you, DU. Thank you, DSST. All those folks who've educated IL. School Performance Framework. Those are ratings that the state gives schools, and those will be dropping. Um, I think that they're in the hands of some people, but I think they drop publicly. I think Monday, and I wanted to go over that really, really quick. We're not going to dive into it as deep as I want to today because that'll be another session. But I think it does help frame some of the stuff we're going to talk about today. Today we are talking about. Thank you for pulling that up, Caleb. Today we're going to be talking about Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Early College, which is in Denver, which is in the Green Valley Ranch area, and we're going to talk a little bit about them. But I think as everybody gets ready to see these SPF ratings that are going to come out, I want to just give you a little context. Can you go to just scroll up a little bit? I think there's keep going, like about right there. Let me put my glasses on. You know, he's got it on the screen, but not on my screen. So keep going up there. That's what I want to do right there, right there. Can you make it zoom in just a little bit of that right there? How performance is measured for me? Yeah, keep that looking beautiful right there. So this is the thing. Come out just a little bit, and how performance is measured. If you are in an elementary school and a middle school, I want this to be clear that 60% of what is giving you your score is related to academic growth, right? And you can see there what that means, and then 40% is actually based on academic achievement, right? So 60% is based on growth and 40% is based on high academic achievement. So you can be a high growth school with um, low academic achievement and score well on the state's SPF, right? So let's be clear that when we talk about that, you can have a high growth and still be struggling with academic achievement based on how it is scored. And if you look also then at how high schools are scored, so high schools are about 30% is post secondary readiness, 40% is growth, and then 30% is academic achievement. So of these things, so when you see green ratings, right? This is why I always tell families when you see a green rating, um, great, right? But I need you to dig deeper to understand why that rating is green. And what is the student achievement? Like just like this thing scores all of these things, I think you should understand when you see that score what that means. Like what made you green, right? Is it high growth and still low achievement? Is it great growth and great achievement? Is it what like that should be very clear because I think a lot of times what happens is we have folks tell us one side of the story and they don't tell us the full story. And we think that, hey, we're in a situation to where we have everything great is going on. And so while you can have good growth, you can also still be struggling with student achievement. So that's a little thing that I wanted just to hit you up with related to the SPF, those things coming out. There'll be some folks who are celebrating their colors and all that good stuff. But you know, we've worked in schools and worked with a lot of schools to say, like, we know that the full story is that yeah, you can be a great growth situation and you need growth, right? But I like to say you also need gain, right? You need a gain in proficiency, and so it's great. Like, what is growth over time? Is the growth over time going to lead to the gain proficiency that a student needs? Or we used to say, like, we used to say pace. Like, is my growth at the pace that's going to realize my gain in proficiency so that this kid who is growing at this rate is also simultaneously going to be gaining at the rate that he or she needs to be grade level proficient or to be proficient before they pass on to the next spot in education. So, growth and proficiency, 60% for growth and 40% for achievement when we're talking about how schools in elementary and middle school are rated. And then when we look at high school, we're looking at post secondary readiness. That's 30%, 40% for growth, and then 30% for achievement, right? So we're going to discuss all that later on another episode because there's a lot there that, you know, um, yeah, I think that growth is great, but I also need achievement, right? And I think that when we were talking about CMAS was talking to us about both. CMAS both talks about growth, as you saw in that chart that Caleb put up there. CMAS gives us a source of growth, but also a source of achievement, and so all of it matters. All of it matters. So, anyways, that's what is it called again? It's the SPF.
It is called the School Performance Framework.
The school performance framework, right? So you'll see that some schools will be talking to you about their year over year SPF. They'll be looking about their 3 year SPF, and definitely want to celebrate the things where we're celebrating. Definitely want to see students growing, but we also want to see students gaining, right? That's the thing, is that I want to see students gaining the proficiencies that they need to be year over year ready and to be ready when they transition to the next stage of their education. All right, great. So, look, we're having a good time. We're having a good time talking about all this. I appreciate all of the feedback that we're getting from folks. One of the feedback things is like, I talk on the show like I am just talking to Caleb and Itzael, and I look up and I'm all that kind of stuff, getting used to talking to the camera. But that's what we do. So thank you for the feedback there. Even so, I'm looking right at you. I'm giving you some eye contact today, so you know that I'm looking into your soul and saying you must care about the outcomes and the inputs into the lives of children. Is that fair? It's great. So, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Early College. Let me just say this: I have a unique history with DMLK. Some of you were not born. There was a point in time where DMLK was considered literally the worst school in the nation. It actually was my cousin was attending the school at the time, and there was a national story that was done about DMLK at the time, and it was just talking about how the school was just out of control, right? Was not doing the thing that it needed to do, and there were it was a national. I think it was a local embarrassment, but it was projected nationally, and it was just rough, right? And it was a lot of things going on. A lot of it connected to what we've been talking about and this education compact. So, look, I believe in common language and making sure we're all speaking the same language, and as far as understanding the words that we're using and what they mean. And one of the things that we've been talking about is this education compact that includes governance, that includes leadership, that includes the practitioners on the day to day, the families, and it includes the beloved community, right? So those five components, right? Those five critical engines, if you would. And I want to throw this up there. There's this definition that I want to see. And again, Kayla puts it in font that I gotta put my glasses on. I just likes to try to remind me of my age, right? And so the thing that I want us to understand, and it again is very applicable to the DMLK story. It very applicable to the case study that we were doing on Robert F. Smith STEAM Academy. It is very applicable to the case studies that you will be seeing us do tomorrow on Montbello High School, and we're going to dive into even Manual High School on Monday. And you're gonna hear this thing right here: compact coherence, right? And it is the sustained. There it is. See, it's right above me. It's pretty cool. It is the sustained alignment of governance, leadership, practitioners, families, and beloved community around a shared vision, mutually reinforcing actions, and collective accountability for student thriving, right? Sustained alignment. That's critical to that. Sustained alignment of all of those. Thank you, producer. It is sustained alignment of all of those things, right? So that's the critical piece that we want to use as our continue to use as our frame, as our education compact. That as we process these things and we talk about what's going on, um, we want you to look at it through those lenses, right? Because we are here. I was reading my quote of the day from our book, "The Gift of Influence." Our team actually read this. Director Marlene De La Rosa from DPS had recommended it to our team a while ago, and so we all read through it. But one of the things that I want everybody to understand is like this is a good quote for this one. Remember that words are a powerful thing. Use them responsibly, right? So every time we get on the Justice Cast, we understand words are powerful and we got to use them responsibly. So our goal here is to use our words responsibly and to we're not pointing fingers, but what we are doing is saying, hey, here is the hypothesis that we have is that when there is coherence among these major systems, when there is coherence among these groups of people, that we believe that we are able to ensure the students thrive. And when there is incoherence, right, when those parts are not working interdependently, when you have those parts working in silos, you can see some lifts. You will hear this, especially when we get to the Montbello and Manual stuff. You will hear that there are still parts in there that can keep something sustained. They can keep something moving, but that thing will never ever achieve what it was supposed to achieve or capable to achieve if we do not get coherence within the compact. So that's the main thing. So again, let's jump into DMLK, right? DMLK, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Early college, and what I want to say is that this is not just a story about like high performing or low performing school, right? Um, there's a tension that as we did the research, thanks to our research folks again who help us put all this stuff together, there's a tension that we see in the story of DMLK. And again, we're looking back. I mean, our research and data looks back to 15 years. So we're talking about from 2011 to present. We're talking about the DMLK journey, right? The school, as we said today, the are we delivering on the dream or not, right? You can't be named after Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and not be knocking it out the park, right? It's like, you gotta bear the name. Like you that's the burden, right? You're named after the one who wrote and told us what the goal of education was, of great education. And you can't bear that name of the drum major for justice. You can't bear the name of I have a dream. You can't bear that name and not knock it out the park, right? That's the pressure. I mean, that's the pressure going to a school named after a great, right? But there's we as we look through all this research, as we come through all this stuff, and another cool thing that we're going to be doing starting next week, all of the data sets and all of the research that we've done, we're going to be making it available on our website. And so if you want to be able to look at it and you want to go through it and you'll see our notes and all that kind of stuff, and you'll see how we uh, have drawn some of the conclusions and come to the understanding that we have, and you can grapple with it too, and then you can use it on whatever platform you have, or you can call me and say, "Hey, I want to come on there and argue with you." We'll be glad to have you. We love it when folks want to come on and argue with us. Caleb does because he's the one that argues. Me and Itzael are chill, right? Well, we don't get worked up. Well, maybe. Anyways, DMOK. The tension that we see is that historically strong graduation outcomes and meaningful student growth alongside low academic achievement. So this kind of goes back to the SPF conversation we're saying, right? Historically, we see strong graduation and we see meaningful student growth alongside low academic achievement, particularly mathematics. And this what we did with this is to say that um, our research was saying, okay, what do those outcomes mean? Who benefited? What changed over time? And which parts of the education system owned the conditions, right? Who owned the conditions, right? Again, we talk about our education compact lens. Governance creates conditions, leadership creates culture, practitioners create experience, families create expectations and possibilities, and beloved community creates power. And then that is when we believe that students thrive. And so, again, looking at DMLK from 2011 to now, we jumped up to like 2016 on some of the results here. And you look at the framework points, again, going back to the SPF, the school performance framework, when they can get where schools get scored, its highest year as far as like total points that it was able to earn was like in 2017, right? And that was 65.9%. Total points. So that means points related to growth. You saw what we said. The middle school is related to growth and achievement, right? And then with the high school growth, post secondary readiness, and then achievement. So the highest point of DMLK was in 2017, 65.9% total points, right? What we've seen now is DMLK in 2025 academic achievement remained in a does not meet while growth was approaching. Again, growing, but when it came to academic achievement, still not achieving what they needed to. We also noticed this in our research. In DMLK in 2010, cohort graduation rate was 89.6%. That's for 4 year graduation. Highest graduation percentage for DMLK was around, again, 2017, 97.3% of students who are graduating. Now, the other thing that we want to be clear about graduation, again, growth and achievement, right? Graduation is a completion measure, right? It's a completion measure. It means I completed the coursework that was necessary to earn this diploma, right? If you go to graduation and they certify the graduates, you hear that somebody will get up there, some dignitary, some principal will get up there and they will say, blah blah blah, and I certify that the students before me have completed all of the coursework necessary to earn their diploma, right? Completing the coursework to earn your diploma does not equal that I completed the coursework at a level that says I was actually proficient in the subjects that I completed. Everybody understand that? I completed all the work in math, but I was not proficient in math. I completed everything, all the assignments. I went to class. I completed all of the coursework, right? And anybody who goes to school knows that you don't, not everybody, an A, a B, a C, a D, right? That's completion of the coursework. We completed the work. So when we talk about graduation rates, what we are talking about is course completion. The things that we were supposed to complete, we completed. Now, did we complete those things at a level that affirms that we were at grade level or above grade level, that we had mastered the things that were actually in those classes? That's a whole nother conversation. And that's what we see a lot. That's a tension that is held here, that high graduation rate and low state achievement can both be true, right? I know that folks ask that question now. Well, how are we graduating kids with these proficiency levels? Well, because graduation is not based on proficiency. Graduation is based on course completion. Okay. Again, I'm supposed to tell you, the producer said, if you have a comment, if you're watching us on YouTube, please, you can comment in the YouTube comments. If you're watching us on Facebook, you can also comment on Facebook. And if you have my cell phone number, you can text me and I can read the text right here while you're on the air, right? But again, a high graduation rate and low state achievement can be true at the same time, because graduation measures completion and state assessments like the CMAS and the PSAT and the SAT tells us something different about academic readiness, right? So this is the thing that folks have to understand. Graduation completion is about completion. It's not telling me anything about readiness. What it is telling me that I completed something, right? I completed the courses that were required to complete for this diploma, okay? It doesn't tell me anything about academic readiness, right? I wish it did. I wish it was clear correlation between the fact that I got a diploma actually means that I am proficient. Is that what you guys thought when you graduated, Caleb? It's when you guys got your high school diplomas. Did you think those high school diplomas? What did you guys think? Did you think that meant you were academically ready, or did you just know, hey, there's no way I should be getting this
Yeah, I knew
thing?
I knew that there was really no way I should be getting this because I graduated during COVID, and while I was online, I didn't do any of my classwork,
What the
and
what?
I still ended up with a high school diploma. So it was like it wasn't even about what I learned.
It's what about you?
For me, I think
It's
what
has a delay when he talks, so when you hear that big old delay, and we're both looking at him like, and let's go.
yeah, for me, I think like most students have figured out by now is most of it just taking the credits that you graduate. Like, you need a PE credit. You're gonna go try to take that PE class, and making sure that you pass it with like the minimum. But that doesn't mean that someone's actually ready to graduate. That just means that they got the credits they needed.
Yeah, let me ask you both this. Both of you, and again, this is in the context too. We're talking about here. This is the MLK kind of tension that we see. Um, how did it feel, Caleb? And how did it feel? Both of you who graduated, both of you began to explore college right after graduation. What did college do? Was there a shock when you got to a space and you're like, whoa, whoa, what's this? Was there any of that?
Uh, for me, I would say not really, because for the time that I was in school, Northfield definitely did a great job of preparing us for what college would look like. So even though it was that last year that was kind of all over the place, I still had all that other preparation.
Yeah, well, that's good to hear. Of course, he's gonna shout out the Nighthawks. Right? Of course. Did you run into some stuff when you first got to DU? Were you like, oh man, this is a whole nother level?
Kinda, but not really. Like I had a lot of CE and AP courses that were similar to structure to how D right now.
Okay, so that I think that
So
also is a good point too. Is like I
yeah,
guess it depends on what to your and Kayla's point. It depends on what your exposures were in high school, right? So if you had some high level coursework like AP, IB, some of the other honors classes, even concurrent enrollment, if you had exposure to those things, you felt more prepared to dive in because you had some high level coursework that you were given. That's what I'm hearing you both, and they're both nodding. Yes, right. So the question here, um, with DMLK, and the question I think we can ask of most high schools is, do diplomas consistently signal readiness for college level work, or did graduation and academic preparation diverge, right? So, and I think we just heard from them. Like it is, in most cases, again, we have, if students have not been exposed, I think that's a very valid point that they make. If students have not been exposed to some high level coursework, rigorous coursework like AP, IB, concurrent enrollment, or any of the honor stuff, if they've not been exposed to that, then I think college does kind of punch you in the gut, and you're like, whoa, 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 what's going on, right? I wasn't ready for this, right? And then when you have to dive in and you have to, think critically, and you got to do all these different things where, to Itzel's point, there's also that like, hey, just knock this, get this thing done, just get the coursework done, and so you have an experience where young people are feeling like, hey, well, well, I got this diploma. Doesn't this diploma mean I'm ready? No, the diploma actually means that you completed high school. Right, it means you completed the coursework. I remember I used to count the credits like, oh, I need three credits to this, I need 3 credits to that, I need 3 credits of that, and boom, 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 boom. Right, you weren't even being maybe you weren't even cognizant of the fact that you're going somewhere else. If you're going to college, you have to have a level of readiness. And so I hear that, and that's some of the tension that we got when you looked at some of the data. is just that tension. And I think that's consistent. You'll see that at Montbello. You'll see that at Manual. You'll see that at even DSST when we look at them next week, right? You see that that is a real thing. So I think, again, as we look at tomorrow or whatever, folks get to see these new SPF ratings that come out. I do think that we should be more critical of the state ratings. I do think we should be more critical and say, do these ratings mean what we want them to mean as a community, right? Do they mean, do they reflect the values that we have? Do they reflect the desires that we have for our students? Like if you say green to me, right? It's like if you hear green, what do you mean? What do you think that means?
Green usually means good.
Okay, green usually means good. Like you got
Yeah.
green money, that's good.
Have green flags.
Green, yeah, that means go. You got a green light,
So,
go. Right? You got green broccoli. Put some cheese sauce on that.
okay.
Okay, yeah, you
I
know.
was like, maybe the kids won't say green broccoli is good, but like, yeah.
Yeah, green. When we see green, it immediately says to us, everything's good, everything's fine, right? I just got my test results. You know, I go to Kaiser, telling everybody go out there and get your annual physicals done, and make sure you take care of yourself because health is wealth. You got to make sure you take care of yourself. And I'm looking at all of my indicators, and as I'm looking at my indicators, I'm making sure that everything's in the green. Because if it goes yellow, ooh, I'm a little concerned. If it goes red, I'm planning my funeral. But everything was green, right? So everything's green, right? My doctor, even though everything was green today, my doctor looked at the green and said, "Okay, let's dive deeper into what that green means, just to make sure that there's not something that is going on that we should be aware of. I don't want you to have this like fool's gold green to where you think that everything's good and really you're borderline, right? So that's again very important that when we look at these things that we say, okay, what's going on, right? Can you have a school that is high graduation rate and low achievement? Yes, possible. Very consistent across most spaces, right? And that's one of the tensions we saw. The other thing, see, we looked at here at DMLK was like when we look at leadership and staff stability. So then we get into, again, the compact. Is how are we maintaining coherence as we maintain leadership, right? And we look at that at the school there was some consistency in leadership. When you look at this was a great data. This was a great data. Good job, data team, right? But 2010, 2011. These are some familiar names for those of us who've been around for a while. But like 2010, 2011, you had Alan Smith. Alan Smith was out there rocking things at DMLK, right? And then you got around 2012, 2013, Dr. Anthony Smith, Tony Smith. Tony Smith was rocking it there at DMLK. Dr. Tony Smith is the former deputy superintendent here in Denver Public Schools and is now the superintendent in Beaverton Public Schools out there in Oregon, right? So you're starting to see some connections, right? And then Kimberly Grayson arrived in 2013, right? And 2013, Kimberly Grayson began to do some good stuff there at DMLK, specifically around student health and wellness, around making sure that the students had the full wraparound approach that students needed. Kimberly was very passionate about the whole child stuff, and this was like her, even as we looked at the research, this was her thing, right? And so you look at 2013, 2014, Kimberly's there. 2015, 2016 season, she's there. But the one thing that in the research that jumped out too in this 2015, 2016 report was like 93% staff retention rate, right? 93% staff retention rate. And those of us who live in the far Northeast, those of us who know, who've run schools out there, who've tried to get a sub at a schools out there, understand how hard and how difficult it was to get subs, but also to maintain a team. And so Kimberly in 2015, 2016 had a 93% staff retention rate. And she, in articles that we looked at, she was talked to about these things, and she talked about instructional leadership, their coaching systems, and just talked about how they were able to achieve that. And then you see the students have some of their best results when we get to this data set in 2016, 2017, 2017, 2018, and it kind of goes that way. And then there's some dip there. 2019, 20, they experienced a 30% teacher turnover. So again, this is talking about leadership coherence, right? And so then you start to see um, a little bit of incoherence, right? You start to see some things kind of unravel, and this is where, like, similar to Robert F. Smith STEAM Academy conversation. The point is that, okay, when parts of the ecosystem, when parts of the education compact begin to unravel, and sometimes it's not because, oh, something's going on, but it's because, hey, people got promoted. I mean, all those names that I said to you before: Alan Smith, Tony Smith. Tomorrow, when we talk about Montbello, you'll hear me talk about Antoine Wilson. A lot of these folks were leading in the spaces in the far northeast, and because they had experienced some measure of success, most of them got poached to go work at central office. Right, so there was this thing that we hated in the northeast part of town, was because it's like, as soon as somebody got good enough, based on central office perspective, they usually got pulled and they became something in central office, and so then it created this instability at the local school. And if the local school was being built upon the personality of one person, and the stuff that one leader was doing had not become institutionalized, or the practices has not moved beyond the principal office into the classrooms or into the hallways, if that stuff had not been adopted by the school as a whole, what we often saw was schools take that deep dive because they were being built around just one charismatic leader. And let me just tell you again, that's not what our compact says. Our compact says that's actually a red flag, because you cannot ensure that students thrive just because you have a great personality in the leader, right? A charismatic leader cannot ensure that students thrive. And that's why, again, in our hypothesis is that you need all of those things: governance, you need leadership, you need practitioners, you need families, and you need beloved community that are buying in, because at any point where there's change that happens, and it does, transitions that do happen, the other parts of the compact will lean in, lift up, and ensure that as we go through a transition over here in this place, we're still going to maintain what we need to maintain. But Kimberly Grayson was there, began to experience some things, and then a whole host of things that is probably worthy of its own episode. That maybe I'll invite Miss Grayson on if she'd be willing, and talk with her about that. But a lot of things started to happen, and a lot of different, again, similar to the Robert S. Smith STEAM Academy. A lot of things began to be aired out in the press or aired out on social media, and uh, professional attacks a little bit, maybe a lot of it, right? Professional attacks, and back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Investigation, all of these different things started to happen, and it began to impact the students. And while we acknowledge, like, even in our reports, we acknowledge, like, there was a decline that was happening, right? And there's some other factors, right? Because in the same time that we're talking about what's going on in the school, remember, part of the compact is also the beloved community, right? And so you have to understand that within the beloved community, what's going on, what transitions are happening there, what conditions are now that were once this are now this, and those changed conditions in the beloved community are also now impacting how the coherence of the education compact works, right? All of those things um, play a role in it. And yeah, yeah. Some people told me yesterday, like, oh my God, it's so high level, you're talking so fast. I know, yeah, because it's like we only got a certain amount of time to get through all this stuff, and I'm trying to give you both a history lesson and hope for the present, right? And the hope for the present in all of this is, yes, while you get a history lesson of understanding maybe things that you didn't know were going on in Denver, maybe you didn't know what's going on in Aurora, maybe you didn't know what's going on at 27J, whatever we can do to help you get a clear understanding of history, and a clear understanding of what's happening, and a clear understanding of how we can hope. That's why we have our education compact, right? Our education compact says, hey, history, happening, and hope, all of those things can be vetted through the education compact that says, okay, in your history, how was the compact working? In your current happenings, how is the compact working? And with your future hopes, how is the compact working, right? Because the essential piece that we see here, even at DMLK, we see it at Robert F. Smith, we'll see it again, like I said, with other schools that we're going to be diving into with our case studies. You see that that matters. What? Um, you know, the strongest positive staff stability evidence was when Grayson was there, and that matters. Being able to keep the right people in front of kids year over year to build community, to move with them, to ensure the best practices on a day-to-day basis. That's critical, right? Staffing instability. Come on, we've talked about this in other episodes. Staffing instability is just hard, right? You cannot build belonging. You cannot grow engagement. You cannot build trust when you are constantly seeing staff instability. I had a conversation the other day, guys. Remember, we were talking about this, that there's a school in another school in my community where, like, for 3 years they had instability when it came to principal leadership. Right, like two principals. Neither one wanted to be there. One was working Monday, Tuesday. Another one was working Wednesday, Thursday, and neither one was working Friday. And it went on like that for too long, right? And so, how did you expect to have any type of positive outcomes when there was incoherence within that education compact within that school community, right? It's not possible, right? Um, so DMLK shows us that DMLK had a long stretch of some principal continuity, but a very different levels of teacher stability. That's a whole other thing too that we talk about. What does it? It tells us that you can have a good leader, but you also need teachers. You need teachers who are gonna, you know, who are gonna be leaning there with you and who are going to, you know, commit to get this thing through to where it needs to get to. So in 2017, again, this is the 15-year look. 2017, right? We've got DMLK is performance plan. Now, mind you, a lot of the tests have changed. We go from TCAP, we're at CMAS, and all these different things, right? So this analysis, let me tell you, whew, right? We changed this measure and that measure and that measure, and so when you're trying to do all the research and try to kind of get trends on all this kind of stuff, again, shout out to the data squad. But DMLK moved from 2017 performance plan 65.9% of the framework points to an improvement rating with 46.4% in 2018. You can't attribute that to one thing, right? You can't attribute that to one thing. You can't attribute that drop from 65.9% to 46.4%. You can't attribute it to one thing, but you can attribute it based on our hypothesis to a breakdown in the education compact, that there was some governance hiccups, there were some leadership hiccups, there were some practitioner hiccups, there were some families hiccups, there were beloved community hiccups, right? And so all of those things, right, cause that, right? And the thing, though, this is what I don't think we do well in education, is we see this thing happen, and you're talking about 2017, we were here, boom, 2018, we're there. Did we pause long enough to ask ourselves, what was present in 2017 that produced our strongest outputs, and what changed a year later, right? We just had our strongest year. And now in the following year, we're having a dip, a sizable dip in what we were doing. And do we pause? Did we pause and reflect enough to say, okay, how did governance change? How did leadership change? How did practitioners change? How did families change? How did beloved community change? Because I guarantee you that as you dig deeper and you start to look at all of the smaller details that happen when you see that drop from 2017 to 2018, I guarantee you start to say, that's where incoherence started. That's where the coherent education pack began to whittle away, right? And began to invite some of the the chaos, or as they say, these small foxes started to nibble on the vines, right? And so you look at that, and again, you ask the question: can a school be highly successful in belonging, support, leadership development, and graduation while still falling short in academic preparation? And if so, what does improvement require without destroying what is working? That is the magical question. And I don't think it's just at DMLK. I think that a lot of times, in my experience, both as someone who's been in the work and someone who has advised people in the work and has tried to get through to superintendents and board members, especially when it came to moments where, like this, where a school takes a drop and everybody immediately wants to go in with a hatchet, or they want to go in with a big old sledgehammer, and instead of just being, you know, going in and saying, okay, what's working here, right? Right. What about the education compact is working here? Great. What can be improved upon in those areas, even where we're working? And then with a scalpel, go in and say, okay, let's not just throw everything away. Let's not just, just wipe the slate clean. Let's not just do all that. But how do we learn? If how can we improve without destroying what is working? If things are working, how do we improve without destroying the things that are, and really decimating the community? I think that in a lot of the things that we see done in a lot of districts, and this is not exclusive to Denver, Aurora. It's not exclusive to us. It's exclusive nationwide. I mean, God, look at what's going on in Austin ISD or Houston ISD, right? Look. You can look. I could name a whole bunch of places that we study and research and kind of pay attention to say, hey, how are they doing it there? How are they serving families and students better? Right? Or how is the compact working more effectively there? Right. So it can happen everywhere. And so I think what began to happen in my view, right? This is Vernon Jones, JusticeCast opinion, right? Is when you began to see decline at a school, a lot of times there are folks maybe in a central office position who are not proximate to what's happening at a school, right? And I'm not talking about the leadership or just the day-to-day practices. I'm talking about not proximate to the leaders, not proximate to the practitioners, not proximate to the families, and not proximate to the beloved community, right? So instead of operating as a cohesive, coherent education compact, right? You get one part of the compact, and I'm just going to use the governance, and I'm going to pull that out and say, okay, you get one part of the compact that begins to act separate from the other pieces, right? So they began to say, okay, from where we see it, this is what's going on. And that school's struggling, that school's this, and that school's that, and that school's that, and that school's that. And then they make determinations about what direction the school should go in, what resources should go there. They begin to say, hey, this is what needs to be done without having a conversation with the rest of the education compact, right? You start to see the school declining. You start to see the school going in a negative direction, and you just to say, hey, we've got to do something, right? And to me, usually what do something means is have a dialogue. Have a dialogue. Go and talk with the other parts of the compact and say, okay, how are we doing when it comes to governance here? How are we doing when it comes to leadership here? How are we doing when it comes to practitioners here? How are we doing when it comes to families here? And how are we doing with beloved communities here? Because when we assess those things, when we are data driven, we begin to make the right decisions that improve in the areas that actually can ensure the kids thrive, right? Because, you can't continue to just, scrap and restart, scrap and restart, scrap and restart, bring in this model, bring in Blue School Partners, bring in these people and these people and those people and these people, and continue to experiment on communities over and over and over again. There has to come a point where somebody says, wait, let's look at the whole thing. Right now, we just continue to just, blow things up just to blow things up, and we're not being very smart about assessing the whole body, right? Again, going to the doctor today, my doctor checked every bit of me, every lab, everything that you could check, they paid attention to everything, right? If I showed them a little thing that I got and I needed them to check it out, make sure it was good, and if she saw that thing and she thought it was threatening and she just decided, hey, you got this little problem on your hand, then we're just gonna have to just get done with you because there's a little problem there, right? I think we got to be more intentional than that. I think we got to be more intentional than that. We got to pay more attention to what's going on, right? Um, so I know there's a lot of folks out there, have interacted with DMLK, and other folks out there have seen the experiences there, and I just think again, it is another example of the education compact failing, right? Not students failing, right? But the education compact failing students. When we see things happening at schools, when we see things moving in directions that they are not supposed to move in, or we don't want them to move in because we have different hopes for our children, it's important that we say, wait, pause. What is the education compact saying? What is the data saying to us? How we should be moving, right? And this is the thing, right? Um, when we look again at DMLK from 2018 to 2015, uh, the ratings that were issued there were improvement or priority improvement. It has been in a situation where in 2025, the indicator's academic achievement was 28.9%. Academic growth was 57.6%, which was approaching. Post secondary and workforce readiness was 48%, which was approaching. Um, CDE reported their graduation rate in 2024, 2025 was 81.7%, right? So again, course completion. Um, I mean, this goes back to in 2018, it was recognized as a school of opportunity for its broad student supports and its post-secondary opportunities, right? So, and 8 years later, where are we at? And when you say, okay, 8 years later, here we are, then you have to ask yourself, well, how do we get here? How did we get here? How did the education compact, if we are not thriving there, if students are not thriving there at DMLK at the level we have dreamed them to thrive at, we have to begin to ask ourselves, well, why isn't that happening? What's going on with the governance? What's going on with the leadership? What's going on with practitioners? What's going on with families? What's going on in beloved community? And we ask those questions seeking to solve them together, right? That in order for the school to thrive, there's got to be again all of those things that need to be taken care of, right? And so there's a lot still that we're researching. There's a lot still that we're looking at here as we look at DMLK. But I think at the end of the day, what we're saying is that there's still this great tension of like, why are kids not thriving, right? And it's not just, oh, well, those principals aren't doing their jobs, or oh, those teachers are not doing their jobs, or oh my God, those families don't care about education, and oh, out there in Green Valley Ranch, it's not a priority, right? No, it's none of that. And the thing is that eh, the reality is it's a lot of everything, right? And each part of the education compact has to ask its own questions, right? And so you go back to our compact again. It's like, oh, so if governance is supposed to set the conditions, governance is supposed to set the conditions, then governance has to ask, are we setting the conditions where students can thrive, right? That's the question. It's just like, hey, if we're governing this, right, and are we setting the conditions to where students can thrive, right? And so, and if you're leadership, and leadership, you can look at superintendent leadership, principal leadership. If you create the culture and the community at DMLK, are you creating the culture and the community where students can thrive? If you're a day to day practitioner in that building, you have to say, hey, am I every day creating excellent learning experience so that students can thrive? If you're a family in that building, you have to say, as a family, are we every day creating expectation and possibility of our children that we send into that building? And then if you are the beloved community, you have to ask ourselves, hey, are we supporting in a way that builds power for that school that is serving the children of our community so that students can thrive, right? I think that's the thing. We all have to be asking ourselves, are we doing our part to make sure that students thrive? And we told you there was, there's a lot of connections there. I mean, there all the names that we named and people who were former leaders and current leaders and all this kind of stuff within Denver Public Schools. There's a long history, right? And even as we talked about, Robert F. Smith yesterday, there's connections. I know that Grayson, when she was there, she was like the mentor to help out the founding principal at Robert F. Smith STEAM Academy, and Grayson was trying to do her best, as I know, having had conversations, and we have a friendship and a collegial respect for each other, right? And so there's a lot of connections, right? Everybody was trying to help everybody be successful. Everybody was trying to, and a lot of times, trying to help people be successful because another part of the compact was not doing its part, right? Another part of the compact was not moving in a way that was helping to remove barriers for not just leadership, but also for practitioners and families and the beloved community. And so there's these things are connected, and some of the same headaches that you might see at a DMLK are some of the same headaches that you would see at a Robert F. Smith's STEAM Academy. You some of the same headaches because again, it's all about the same um, compact. It's all about the same compact, and it's all about, are those compacts moving with coherence versus chaos? And sometimes I just think that the chaos is permissible in certain places, right? And by design, there's chaos. By design, we allow disruption. By design, we allow folks just not to have it together in certain spaces. So, look, 15 years of DMLK, 15 years looking at this since 2011 to 2026, and the question is, how well has DMLK fulfilled its promise to prepare young people, particularly students historically underserved by Denver's education system, to graduate academically prepared for college, career, and their hopes? And you can lean there with that question, or you can ask the question that we're asking. Yes, how has DMLK done? But how has DMLK done with the support of the Education Compact? How well has governance supported students thriving at DMLK? How well has governance supported students thriving at DMLK? How well has leadership supported students thriving at DMLK? How well has practitioners supported DMLK thriving? What about families and what about the beloved community? We have to be able to say, hey, if students are going to thrive, then it takes intentional effort, unsiloed effort by all of us to make that happen. And schools like DMLK are proof points of that. That when we actually did lean in, and when there was coherence, and when there was people moving, as the definition said, moving towards a shared vision of what was going on, we saw some success. And when that began to unravel, we did not see the success that we hoped for. So, yeah, that's DMLK. We're going to talk more about that. But I tonight is a DPS board meeting, right? Denver Public Schools Board of Education meeting, and we always invite folks to come on out to your board meetings, be it DPS, APS, Adams 14, 27J, where go to a DSST charter school board meeting, whatever they are, because your voice needs to be heard, because you are not just someone on the sidelines. You are, as we talk about in the Education Compact, you are a critical component of how we ensure that our structures and our systems work for students thriving. And so, Denver Public Schools Board of Education tonight, 4:30 p.m. It's a work session tonight. Am I correct? Yeah, and they'll be talking about some things. You can go to board.dpsk12.net or .org, and you can look up the agenda and all that kind of stuff. Also, you can also always email. We've been talking about DPS schools. We're going to get on APS schools. We've been talking about that, but you can always email the Board of Education. The Board of Education is the policy arm, like I like to say, the policy arm of the district. So they set the policies, right? They look, and they are stewards of the vision, stewards of the dollars. They do all that, and they can hear from you at board@dpsk12.net. Send them an email. You got some questions about policies. You got questions about their engagement with community. If you got questions with, hey, how is the governance of our district um, ensuring the students thrive, right? And if you're looking at that, they have an employee who's the superintendent, so that's the leadership, and you can ask the board, okay, well, hey board, how are you operating in a way that ensures the students thrive by um, doing the things you're supposed to do with the superintendent by you know planning together, looking at data together, and holding superintendent accountable, right? How are we doing that? That's a part of thriving, right? And I think those are very real questions that we have to ask, and those are questions that have to be answered. And at the end of the day, too, it's like, hey, how are y'all getting along? That seems to be the question right now. Like, how are y'all seven folks getting along? Because really, it's not about y'all. We talked about that yesterday. Egos and education, and we're just like, we need good governance that understands that it begins as the starting point to help set the conditions for students to thrive, and we believe in our interactions with the board members, and we talk to them individually, and we feel like folks are committed to that. But then I'm telling you, things change when folks get around folks, and like we said, I'm gonna go back to our quote of the day because I think it's also it's important that everybody hears it again. Remember that words are powerful things. Use them responsibly. Right? I think that's a good governance principle too as you interact with each other. Like words are powerful. Use them responsibly, right? Because you say some things and it can just set a fire to a lot of things that are unnecessary, and then you're constantly navigating the unnecessary, and the necessary that should be getting done is not getting done, and therefore students are not thriving. So DMLK, we got a 15-year case study. We're going to put that up. Like we said, we're going to put all of our case studies up on the website this weekend. They'll all be up by Monday. And then moving forward, all of our case studies that we have been doing, we will make sure you've got access to that. You can see some of the data we pulled, and folks who texted me yesterday and wanted the one that we worked on, we sent that out to them. And definitely feel free to reach out, right? At the end of this episode, you see there's an email that you can reach out to us at. And there's also a way you can donate. You can help us out. I don't say this enough that we are a nonprofit, right? And so the work that we do here is definitely funded by the grants that we go out and apply for. We are grateful for our funders who help us in tremendous ways to continue to do this work because they believe the students should thrive, learn in great schools, and achieve their hopes. They believe that families and students closest to the issues should be at the table designing the solutions for their lives, and we appreciate their support. And at the same time, we also appreciate our individual folks who stand with us and say, "Hey, we want you to have full freedom," and that's what I call it: full freedom to be able to move in the way you need to move. And so here we are supporting you, and you don't have to bow down to this funder or that funder. And everybody knows me; I'm not going to do that anyways. But it's great to have the support of our ecosystem, who will also pour in to make sure that we can continue the work that we do with students, with families, with educators, with advocate partners, and with kids all across Denver, Aurora, across the state. We just love working with folks because we are crazy enough to believe that we can create a just world where students thrive, learn in great schools, and achieve their hopes. That's what we're here for. That's what we're proud to be about, and proud to just help educate and revive some people's knowledge of what this thing could look like if there was some coherence in the work that we're doing. So look, let's get some good governance. Let's get some good leadership. Let's get some good practitioners. Let's get good families, and let's be a great beloved community that when we think about the world that we want in Colorado for our kids, we go and get it together. I've been Vernon Jones today here on the Justice Cast. We'll see you again tomorrow. Have a great evening.